Hello, this is Debbie from cariadcards.co and today I'm going to show you how to make this Christmas card. I really like this design. It's just something a little bit different to all the Santas and snowmen and penguins and glittery things that you quite often see around Christmas, and it would work perfectly well to give to a man or a woman or a family. So let's have a look at how I made it. I started off with a 6" by 6" card blank. I do tend to just buy these in a pack and use these as my base stock, and they come with matching envelopes, so I just find this gives me a good size to work with. I then cut a piece of cherry cobbler card and I cut that to 5.5 inches by 5.5 inches or 14 centimetres by 14 centimetres, and then I cut a piece of whisper white card to 5.25 inches or 13.5 by 13.5 centimetres. Don't worry about the measurements, I will put those on my blog and I'll put a link to that from the YouTube video. So card and top card. The next thing, I'm going to put those aside for a minute. The next thing I'm going to do is create the stars, and I did those using the Stampin' Up! Bright and Beautiful set. This comes as 2 boxes with various size stars in and a couple of really nice greetings. So the ones that I used are the largest star, and this comes on a ginormous piece of wood, probably far larger than you need, the middle star and the very smallest star. And you can see I did 2 in the cherry cobbler and 1 in the gold embossing powder. So we'll start off by stamping the cherry cobbler, and for that I usually use, as any of you who watch me regularly, a stamping pad and a piece of just spare card just to keep the pad clean. And I do normally stand up to stamp. I find it gives me a much better image. So take a piece of the whisper white card and cherry cobbler. Please don't look at the state of the back of my stamp. I do seem to get them in a bit of a mess, but it doesn't affect the actual stamp itself. And you can either take the pad to the stamp or the pad to the stamp, whichever works for you. Normally I take the pad to the stamp. Sometimes with the larger ones I find it a bit better just to do it the other way around. So we'll get 1 of the large stars and just pop it down, press down firmly, make sure, oops, I think I might have just moved it there, and I was just going to say make sure you don't move it because you'll get a blurred image if you do. Actually I think I got away with that, that was lucky. And then the smallest one, and again cherry cobbler ink, and put that somewhere out the way and stamp yourself an image. Now we want to cut those out. You can do them by hand, but to be honest, if you are able to get these, the stars framelits dies, they really will save you a lot of time and you'll get a really neat cut. It will be difficult to cut those by hand and get all the lines perfectly straight. And these come as a pack. I don't know whether I've shown you this before. I just get a piece of magnetic sheet, cut it to size and put it in here, and then I find it just holds my dies nicely. So this comes as a pack of 5, and I've taken out the 3 that I want to use, so it's an even larger one and a medium one. And that's the one that I would use. I would fit it over there. I'm not going to do this, just the same, I'm having to get my big shot up here and start the desk rattling, but I would fit that over, run that through my big shot, and the same with that one. Make sure that you can see all parts of your stamped image, run it through your big shot, and voila, let me just move that. I have a couple prepared. There we are, those have already been stamped and gone through. So now we've got the 2 cherry cobbler stamps. What we need to do is the gold embossed stamp, and that's using this middle one here. So I'll just get my spare piece of card. I do need to make a bigger working area. I think, no, that's actually my proper card. Now, where did I put my spare piece? Ah, there. Okay, so for this, because I'm going to emboss it with gold embossing powder, I'm going to use my Versamark pad. I find that works. There are other pads that you can use if you're going to be embossing. This for me I have found to be the best, but you know, if you have another one and you're happy with it, then by all means carry on using that. You know, obviously I love Stampin' Up products, but everybody has their own personal preference. People already have things in stock, so you need to use what works for you. Okay, and you need to just run over this with your embossing buddy. Just give it a quick rub over, and the reason that I do that is to remove any possible greasy finger marks where the embossing powder would stick, and I'm warning you, if that embossing powder can stick to anywhere, it will. And also static. Oh, excuse me. Right, so I've inked that up. Press it down, make sure you've got good contact. And that's why I like these wood mount stamps. You really can get a good press on those. Okay, now, if you're going to be using embossing powder, you really do need a bit of paper or a bit of card just to catch all the powder. Pop that over there, and then I've got the Stampin' Up gold embossing powder. This really is lovely. It gives you the most beautiful shiny finish. Very luxurious. Pop plenty on. Just tap it to get rid of any excess. Have a look. If you've got any bits you haven't quite covered, just pop a bit more on. If you have picked up any stray bits, get a little paintbrush and just flick them off. But be careful you don't take it off your actual image that you want to be embossed. Just pop your powder away. Don't do what I did once and leave it on the side, carry on doing things and then end up knocking it everywhere. What a waste that was, and what a mess. Right, so I can take that all away now. Right, so powder's on. It's a good idea to do this fairly quickly because every time you touch it, obviously you run the risk of knocking some off, but you know, if you put it somewhere safe, it's not going to go anywhere. You're not going to damage it by leaving it. You know, a couple of minutes here or there make no difference. Use your heat gun, heat that up, just let it heat up for a second. I don't expect you'll be able to hear me much over this. And then you'll see it change before your eyes. There we go, look at that. I absolutely love that gold. Look at how shiny that is. Absolutely stunning. It's gorgeous, isn't it? And the silver's just as beautiful. Couple of tips if you're not used to embossing. Don't keep the heat gun on there too long. Let it melt like it has and then remove it. If you leave it on too long, it will go matte and dull and you'll lose that beautiful shine. It starts to remelt. Okay, and then I used that star framelit, fitted it over, ran it through my big shot and ended up with the star there. So now I've got 3 stars, and if you have a look here, what I've done is I've tilted them so that they're not sitting directly over one another. I quite like that effect, but they look just as nice if you literally lay them on top and then you get the graduation in sizes. So you need to do the design that you like. I've just gone for the preference that I prefer. That's a bit strange, isn't it? 2 preferences in one sentence. Right, so we're going to use dimensionals, and I'm just going to stick a couple on here just to hold it. So, as I say, you can lay them like that, or I've gone, just make sure that you try and visually align the centre there, and then obviously the points want to go over the points there. So there's a bit of eyeballing, and I'm sat a bit further back than I would be if I was doing this on my desk. So it may not be as perfect as I would like. Okay, let's just get that off. And again, what I've done then is offset this, so again looking for the centre point and the upright point, and just pop that on there. Okay, I think that's possibly could have done with being a little bit straighter, but you'll obviously have time to do that yourself. Okay, I'll leave that on one side for now. Next thing I want to do is stamp on here. I tend to like to get that done before I do too much else, because if I do make a mistake I can easily replace that. So I take my piece of Whisper White card, get my foam mat back again, my paper, and then the greeting is from the Wondrous Wreath collection, the Happy Wonderful Christmas. I really like that sentiment, and it sits nicely in a corner. So I'm using cherry cobbler ink. You could use smoky slate, black if you want, again up to you. Make sure you've got plenty of ink on there, line it up, pop it down, press on it, and there's your greeting. So what I now want to do is start to assemble the card. I need to put the cherry cobbler backing on because I'm going to wrap the ribbon behind this piece. So I'll let that dry just for a moment. Get my card blank, and you can attach this in any way that you want. You can use double-sided tape, you can use glue, you can use snail. You'll find your own method that works for you. So I tend to try and make sure I've got plenty around the edges. Though sometimes I'm a bit generous and it seeps out. Okay. I suppose I like using glue. It just gives me a bit of a chance to wiggle it if it doesn't go on right first time. I'm not very good with snail, because I find once it goes down, and I'm not very good at getting straight edges. So that's just how I work, you know, it's not the right or the wrong way. So what we're doing now is this section here, and for that I've got this gorgeous, gorgeous cherry cobbler Grossein ribbon, the striped one. I absolutely love this. I love how it just perfectly matches the ink and the card. So I want to put that down there. Obviously don't want to use more than I need to, you know, I'm quite stingy with my ribbons, as I'm sure most of us crafters are. Oh, you'll have to excuse that. I've just got a bit of cherry cobbler ink and pop my finger down there. Just pretend that's not there. I'm not giving this card to anybody, luckily. So I've cut it a bit shorter. I've saved, in fact I could have cut it shorter than that, but I've saved myself a bit of ribbon. And I'm just going to attach this with a bit of glue down here. Make sure that it's well attached. So put the first side on, and then I'm just going to lift it up to make sure it is straight. And that is. You want it nice and straight. You don't want it saggy, but you don't want to put it too tight, because if you put it too tight you'll pull these edges in. So just make sure that's firmly attached. And then again, use whatever method you like, double-sided glue, and attach this onto there. On your top, I did put a lot of glue on here. On your top layer of card, if you are going to use glue, don't put too much, because it can show through the card. So, oh, fingers and thumbs today. That's what happens when you try to rush. So we're going to pop that on. Now ideally it's a good idea to leave this to dry for about 5 or 10 minutes, because what I'm going to do is thread this piece of ribbon through here, and because I'm going to be putting some tension on to tie the knot, I've got the risk, because I haven't let it dry, that this is going to pull away. If you let it dry then it's going to be stuck firmly, but I'm just going to get on and do it just to show you. So I've cut another piece and just tied a bit of a knot, and you can position this wherever you want, you can do it as tight as you want. I'm just wary of not pulling this away, so I probably would do this tighter normally. You can say, you can fiddle around, get it how you want it, but just make sure that's dry. You see it's just starting to pull away there because it hasn't stuck on yet. Right, now that's obviously too long, but give yourself plenty of room, because you do need, you know, a lot of leeway when you're tying knots. And then just cut a nice angle, a nice jaunty angle on either side. And then all you're left to do, you can have that way, whatever you want. We just need to put our star on. Oh, in fact, if I'm very careful placing this, I might be able to cover up my mistake there. That's the beauty of cards, isn't it? There's always some way of covering up any little misdemeanours that you make, and nobody else is any the wiser. You're the only one who knows. So a couple more dimensionals on there. Do you end up with the backs of dimensionals and foam pads all over your craft room? I find that they go everywhere. Okay, and then you want to position that so that it just sits and looks about right. You're not going to get it central to the card because of the ribbon on the left hand side, but put it so that it looks like that's the position it should be in and that you meant it to be in. And then finally I'm just going to pop a pretty little rhinestone in the middle. And I don't know, again, this is just a tip I use my scalpel just to knock it off and then bring it over, pop it down, and then you just use my finger to press it on. And there we have it. Wondrous wreath, sentiment, bright and beautiful star, lovely cherry cobbler, card, ribbon, and there's your Christmas card. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye from Debbie at cariadcards.co.